This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted, as always, to be joined by the WBC lightweight champion of the world, Devin Haney. How are you, Devin? Happy New Year.
Doing good. Happy New Year.
So, talk to me a little bit about your break, Devin, before we get into the boxing. How was your festive period?
Oh, it was good. Just got time to spend with the family, friends, and it felt good.
Now, I haven't spoke to you since before you boxed Yuriorkis Gamboa, so let's just touch upon that a little bit before we talk about what's to come in 2021. It's been a little bit of time now since your win over Yuriorkis Gamboa. What did you make of your performance?
I thought it was a good performance. I went in there. I didn't get touched. I didn't get hit with anything clean. I pitched a shutout, and we got the win. We came out healthy, and yeah.
When I spoke to Eddie after the fight, Eddie said to me that there's two ways of looking at it. There's the way of looking at it at this stage of your career, you hadn't been in the ring for a long time. There's getting the rounds under your belt, but also, of course, you said to me beforehand that you wanted to get the stoppage in that fight. Disappointed not to get it in the end?
I wouldn't say disappointing because with the fight that Gamboa fought, I felt like he just came in there to survive. He came in there not to get stopped. He came in there, not to really win the fight, but to just survive.
Did you feel the ring rust? I mean, it's the longest layoff that you've had so far in a young professional career.
I didn't feel any.
Okay, let's talk about the fight this past weekend. Of course, I'm sure you've been asked about it plenty since. I'll try my best to keep it somewhat fresh. Luke Campbell versus Ryan Garcia. In that interview that we did before the Gamboa fight, you told me you expected Ryan Garcia to win easily. Wasn't quite easy. What did you make of the fight?
I thought that it was a good fight. I was actually surprised that Luke actually knocked Garcia down because I just didn't expect that. I thought it would be a much easier fight. But, Ryan showed that he had grit, he had heart, he got up, and he came out even stronger.
You mentioned that about Luke Campbell. Now, I know that Luke Campbell has been a name that's been kind of mentioned for you for a number of months, really, probably going back over a year. How impressed were you with his performance? You mentioned being surprised by the knockdown.
I was actually impressed with Campbell's performance. He's actually showed that he was better than what I actually gave him credit for. So props to him.
You shared the ring with Ryan Garcia as an amateur. Much has been made about various sparring stories with Ryan Garcia over the years. Have you ever seen him hurt? Were you surprised at the knockdown?
I never seen him hurt. I was actually very surprised with the knockdown, especially with Campbell. I didn't think that Campbell had any power or any pop, but he can't sleep on him.
When you're looking at that as everybody's talking about a potential Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia fight, that must give you an added bit of impetus, seeing that he can be hurt.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's move on. After the fight, of course, you were in the arena. Ryan Garcia jumped on the microphone. He talked about what's coming next. There's your name that was mentioned. There was Gervonta Davis's name that was mentioned. Kind of got a little bit of a mix between the both. What did you make of his post-fight interview?
He just showed that he's willing to fight. That he's willing to fight me. He mentioned me, so I was happy about that. That he showed that he was interested in the fight. But it looks like he's going in Gervonta Davis' way, and not my way for the WBC World title. So,
how does that make you feel?
It is what it is. It's a lot of big fights. I already knew that was going to happen. I said that in interviews before, that watch how he goes the other direction. Even though he was fighting for an eliminator to fight me for the world title, I just knew that he wasn't going to fight me.
So have you given up hope of that fight being next for you? We've seen Mauricio. I spoke to Mauricio Sullivan yesterday. He said he's going to still order the fight, but have you given up hope on that fight happening next?
Yeah, for sure. I would say I've given up hope, but in the first place, I didn't see it happening.
Where does that leave you? Of course, Javier Fortuna is your mandatory. He's somebody who you probably know well. You've seen him box over the years. Do you think he's next for you?
I think we can still make a huge fight with Teofimo Lopez. We could also fight Javier Fortuna. We could fight Jorge Linares. There's still other fights out there to be made.
What have you made of Teofimo Lopez's comments since the fight? I mean, even since the Lomachenko fight. I mean, he's on a roll. Even for Teofimo Lopez, he's never short of a word or two. But he's been coming out and talking some smack in the last couple of days.
A lie, you mean? He says one thing, in this interview, he said one thing, and I say one thing in this interview. He says, "Don't ever overprice myself." He says, and then he says he didn't want 10 million to fight me, and then he says that he wants that he'll fight me. He's willing to fight me. Then he says, "I need 3 to 4 years to get bigger. I'm not big enough." He said one thing. He said, you can't keep up with his lies.
Now, where does this come from with you? And I think it's fair to say that yourself and Ryan Garcia, you seem fairly friendly. You've obviously boxed each other as amateurs. It doesn't really seem that way between yourself and Teofimo Lopez. What's in that?
They just tell so many lies. And I call them out on their lies. They don't like it, but it is what it is.
We mentioned Gervonta Davis. If indeed Ryan Garcia does box Gervonta Davis next, how do you see that fight going?
I actually think it's a better fight than what a lot of people think. People have Tank to go in there and just, walk through him. But I think it's going to be a lot tougher fight. I think Ryan's big. He has long reach. And he's not coming to lay down. I think deep down in his heart, he truly thinks that he can beat Tank.
When you see Ryan Garcia go through the kind of gut check he went through against Luke Campbell, you're a young fighter yourself. There's still boxing fans who want to see you tested like that. Do you want to go through that type of fight, or are you happy just to be the defensive wizard and not get touched?
Of course. I mean, that's the name of the game, is to hit and not get hit. If I can go my whole career without getting hit with clean, of course I would. Nobody likes getting hit. Nobody likes being in a dogfight. But I'm willing to if it comes down to it. But we want to win as clean as possible. And I feel like that's just pretty much everybody. If they could go in there and just knock a guy out with the first punch and never get hit in their career, they would do it.
Now, I appreciate 2020 wasn't a great year for everybody. Let's talk about 2021. How many times are you looking to fight, and who do you want to fight in those fights?
Probably 2 to 3 times, but I want to make big fights happen. In 2021, I want some big fights happen. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Back to you. I've only got a couple of more quick questions left anyway. Much has been made about Ryan Garcia working with Eddie Reynoso. I think that's probably the first fight, certainly recently, that we've seen him go a few rounds under Eddie Reynoso. Have you noticed any significant changes in Ryan Garcia's style?
I think that he's getting better. I do think that he has gotten better since he's been working with Reynoso. I don't see any huge changes, because he still fights like when he fights amateurs. He still has that same type of style.
Talk to us about those amateur fights. A lot of confusion going around on social media at the minute, how many there were, who won what. Talk to us about those amateur fights.
It doesn't matter who won, how many. It doesn't matter, because now we're trying to make the big fight in the pros for the money, for the fans, and for a belt at this point.
Okay, final question from me. Another thing that's been going around on social media, everybody's talking about the new Four Kings, that great middleweight era of years gone by. People are now translating that to the lightweight era with yourself, Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis. What does that make you feel? I mean, it must make you feel great at this point in your career.
Yeah, it does, but it makes me feel good. But in reality, we all have to fight each other. So none of us have fought each other. And it's so many fights we can make. Me versus Tank. Tank versus Teofimo, me versus Teofimo, Ryan Garcia versus Teofimo, Ryan Garcia versus Tank, Ryan Garcia versus me. It's so many fights that can be made between us four. So we just gotta make them happen.
And if you could have one of them, Devin, next, which one do you want?
Teo for all the belts.
Okay. I actually spoke to Mauricio yesterday. He told me that Teofimo Lopez was undisputed. You might want to bring him up. Tell him.
Say one thing today, next thing tomorrow, next thing the day after. Next thing, another thing, a month later. We can't keep up with him.
Okay, well, Devin Haney, always a real pleasure catching up with you. Thanks very much for making time for me in Boxing Social. Look forward to hopefully catching up with you sometime soon in the flesh. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dev.